everyone. I'm here with Shahidah Foster. Thank you so much for joining me, Shahidah. Can you introduce yourself to everyone, please, so we know what you're about?
Sure. So my name is Shahidah, and I am the creator of Black Girls Learn Languages, which is a multi-platform digital community. So I created this community across multiple platforms for Black women that are in the language community. And the reason why I did it is because um, there just wasn't really a lot of visible representation in the language community of I would see, like, for instance, I remember when I was really getting started on like really investing into the German language journey, now that there were resources out there, because I had been doing it commando, just using the TV and stuff. And I came across Benny, and I think I came across somebody else, and I was just kind of like, okay. And then I was just like, there's nobody that looks like me. And even in high school, like, it was like nobody looks like me that really enjoys that. So that's why I started it.
It's so great, really amazing project, and we'll definitely get back to that in a minute because I want to know more. So, but I want to kind of like rein things back a little bit and know, what is your relationship with multilingualism? How did you get into languages? Was it part of your upbringing? And what you love about language learning?
Yeah, so it is a part of my upbringing. So basically, when I was young, like when I was like a toddler, like day school age, right before I got into, like, I want to say, like right around kindergarten age. So from being a toddler all the way to kindergarten age, I was like, Spanish was in the house. So it wasn't spoken to me, but I was immersed in it. So it was on the TV, the music, the neighbors spoke Spanish, come over, because we were living with my godfather at the time, and he was from Puerto Rico. So it was Spanish a lot in the house. And so, as a kid, when kids learn by repetition, most people do, but kids really like and enjoy repetition. And so I'd hear like certain words over and over, and I'd be like, oh, what does concurso mean? Or what does besame mean? Or, and I would ask, and he would tell me. So that was like the building blocks to multilingualism. And then eventually in junior high school, I started doing French. And then in high school, I started doing German.
Love that. Can you, I mean, I already know the story, but I really want you to share the story about the diary thing with French. Will you please tell the viewers what the deal is, how you end up
Oh, right.
using
So
French?
yeah. So what happened was I was studying French. I was really good at the time. Like, I was really good. I think I was like in French 2 or French 3, something like that, in junior high school. And but I had this diary that I had kept, and I used to like kind of hide it behind the closet or whatever. And my grandmother found it, as I was staying with my grandmother at the time. She found it and scolded me, and I just felt very violated, because it was like, how are you going to scold me, reprimand me for my feelings? Like, these are my feelings. This is how I feel about the way I'm being treated or interacted with, and you can't. It was a different time. But anyway, I just thought to myself, well, you're not going to censor me. Like, if you think I'm going to stop doing my diary, you got another thing coming. So I was like, I got a trick for you. And I just started writing my feelings in French. And it really, really helped me. I mean, I wasn't doing it to help me. I just was doing it because there was no Google Translate back then. I know I'm dating myself. There was no, so if I write my feelings in French, you're just stuck. You don't know what it means. So that's what I did. And I just thought that was just a testament to my resilience, because I was like, I'm gonna find an outlet for my feelings. I don't care what y'all talking about.
Hmm. And also such a good example of, the start of you knowing what works in terms of language learning, right? Because there's always that advice of journal in the language that you're learning. And I always struggle with that, but with that extra motivation to kind of hide things from your grandmother is a pretty good one. That's great.
Yeah. And then I also started journaling in German as well, but not really that also wasn't to enhance my German. That was more to chronicle my journey of just being in Germany, because I was in Germany at the time. So it was just more to just chronicle my feelings, what I thought. And I'm not sure why I chose to do it in German, but I did.
And can you give us an idea of kind of what your journey was in terms of moving to Germany? Because you're originally from the US, right? So how did you end up there? And I know you were there for a while and then you moved back. It would be great to have a kind of summary of that journey.
Yeah, so my mother was in the military and we got stationed in Germany. So we were there for a while. I was there for a while. And then we came back to the US. I was in the US and I just always wanted to move back to Germany. I really love Germany. And then I finally just was kind of like, I give up let me just get back to reality, let it go. But it was always in the back of my mind. And then I started working for the airlines. And then eventually I was just like, well, I get flight benefits. Why don't I just go to Germany? And when I went to Germany, it just reignited my desire to want to live there again. I was like, there has to be a way. And so I ended up getting a job with a German company with the intention of transferring, but it didn't work out. So then the next German company which is the one I'm working for now, they actually transferred me over here. And so I'm here now again in Germany.
So great. It sounds like you've got so many useful lessons as to how to get a job abroad, because it sounds like it's easier sometimes to be transferred than it is to, for example, apply for jobs, in country, have that movement with, is it Lufthansa you work for?
I did before, yes.
Okay. And now you're with a
And
new
now
one.
I work for a biopharma company. Yeah, so biotech actually, should I say. But yes, I did work for Lufthansa before and that was my intention, like, oh, that way I can try to transfer. And then when I realized that wasn't gonna happen, and there was like just so many events, my mom died, and I realized, you know what? I need to focus on my family and also grieving and healing with my family. So I just quit my job and moved back to New York to be with my family because it was a very, very hard time for my sister and I and my niece, who's my mom's granddaughter. It was really hard for us. So that I took that step back, and then I end up getting a job with the company I'm with now. And then I got lucky because I didn't expect to transfer with them, honestly. I just was like, oh, you know what? Let me just get a job. It's a German company. That way I love what I do. And I always have like that little tie. And then, it's funny how things work out. So,
Sounds like it was in the stars, to be honest.
yeah, I
And
think
then
it
in
was.
terms of where were you in your language journey with German at that point? Could you already speak some German because of the time you'd spent in Germany?
Yeah, so I could already speak German. And they were really impressed by that in the interview. So that was and I honestly, I think what really got me in the door, as silly as it sounds, I kind of think what got me, well, it was the fact that I knew SAP from my time working with Lufthansa. But
You
I
knew
think that
what?
I
Sorry.
kind of, when I worked at SAP is a program that
Okay.
companies use. And
Okay.
so sorry about that. So I think it was the SAP, but I also think it was the fact that I had Sephora on my resume because my manager at the time, she loved Sephora.
No way. It's the
Yeah, she
little things
did.
that you never think will count. That's amazing.
I mean, she didn't say this. She didn't say it, but I think so.
Wow. That's a great leap. And what I really want to know is, obviously you'd learned French, you'd learned Spanish, and German is totally different. What was that language learning journey like for you? And what did you find easy? What did you find difficult? And what was the thing that ultimately got you to the level that you're at? Because is it C2 level that you're at now?
I do not think so, but and I don't want to segue into something, but I might. But that's debatable because this is the thing. Passing a test and your level of fluency are two different things.
Mhm.
Just because you can pass a C1 or C2 or B1, B2 test doesn't mean that you have that level of comfort when you communicate. And that's something that I'm noticing because I'll be introducing, like, people will introduce themselves to me in language community and, they'll say, oh, I'm C1 German. And then I'll listen to them speak German and I'm like, I speak German better than them, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't pass a C1 exam
Okay.
because that's something you kind of need to prepare for.
Hmm.
But so I don't know if I would say C2. Maybe I could pass a C2 exam, but I don't know if I'm necessarily, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'd say C1-ish. I'd say
Okay.
like
I mean,
that.
that's pretty incredible. How did you get there and what did you find easy and what did you find hard? Because German is so different to those other languages you speak.
It is. And what a lot of people don't know, and it also surprises me in the language community people don't know that, because I'm like, we're all language geeks and language nerds. We should know this kind of stuff. But English is actually a Germanic language, and German syntax is very much reminiscent of Old English, like Shakespearean English. So there was a lot of parallels I could like cognates and stuff that I would like that would catch my eye, and I would notice patterns and stuff. Um, I think that was probably the easiest thing for me, was saying, oh, okay, the syntax doesn't make sense, but if you think about like the stuff you studied in school, like the Shakespearean English and stuff, and the Beowulf, and think about those things we studied, then it kind of makes sense, the syntax, like just trying to draw parallels so that I could understand it, because German is really hard. And let me tell you, okay, so when I was in high school, I was studying French. I was here in Germany. And I think I got to the highest level of French that they offer.
Mhm.
And I was just like, okay, what I'm going to do, because I still want to take a language. And I didn't want to take Spanish because that was a whole thing. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in Germany. Maybe, I could just learn some basic German before I leave. That way I could at least say I learned something. So I signed up for German. I think it was like my junior year, my senior year, one of those years. I signed up for German, like, okay, I'll just learn a couple, and I'm the type of kid that reads ahead. So as everybody's doing the little chapter with, the greetings and stuff, I'm reading ahead. I see this table of articles that looks like the periodic table. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I went to the school the next day. And I told the guidance counselor, put me in cosmetology, coach, because I can't do this. This is not for me. And then it's like, it's so funny because I was like, I'm not learning German. And then I met this boy that was hanging out with my friends, and he only spoke German, and they spoke German and English, and I was the only English speaker. And I was like, he was like, oh, I can't date her because she doesn't speak German and I don't speak English. I said, okay, I got that. And so I just started trying to learn German, and it was crazy because like I think within a week, I totally forgot about that boy. I was just so amazed at how quickly I was learning things. And I just kept on.
And you never came across a real barrier. I mean, what I'd be really interested to know is, obviously lots of people give the advice of go and live in the country, have an immersive experience. And I know there are a lot of people who have done that and it hasn't been successful. So it'd be really interesting to know kind of where you stand on that.
I think everybody has their things, you know what I mean? Like everybody, for instance, they'll say, oh, if you go live in the country, and it's like, yeah, but and I see it all the time in the major cities like Berlin or Frankfurt or Munich. You come here, but then you speak English. Of course, it's not going to get better. You come here and you're speaking English with everybody you come in contact with. And then you leave. Oh, I didn't learn any German. You didn't try. You didn't. And some people do try, but it's like, if your why is like, it's weak, right? Because you need to know your why, because your why is what keeps you going on the days when you're like, you've had enough. And,
Mhm.
I've had that. Like, I've had that where, I remember getting so frustrated one time I threw the book at the wall because I just couldn't get this table of articles because it was just so difficult. And, the cases and all that. And it's like you have to realize, you have to think about, okay, why am I doing this? And if you have a weak why, like the why is not coming from inside of you, then it is going to be more difficult. Like you're like, I'm learning it for this job, but you're not passionate about the job.
So
Or
how
I'm
did you find your why, and what was it that kept you focused on that when you wanted to throw the book at the wall and things?
My why was mastery. My why is 9 times out of 10, it's always mastery. I want to be the best. I want to be at the top of the top at
Mhm.
that thing. So that's usually the things that keep me going, even outside of language. When I learn a new skill or something like that, I always want to be like good, so good that, I can be an expert for others. So that was my why. And that's what kept me going when I got frustrated. One thing that I will say that people don't say is I believe in taking extended breaks from language learning. Like
Okay.
I got so far, I got really good, but I started having issues with the articles because that's a really difficult concept for somebody who just only says the, right?
Mhm.
And so I put that down. I think I put that down for about a year. I put it down for a year and I was just like, I'm just going to continue with what I know and continue to just master that and, whatever. And then eventually, I think after a year or so, I picked it back up again. And then it was like it clicked. It was like, oh, okay, I got it now. So now I understand, but I believe in taking extended breaks sometimes. You have to.
I think that's really great advice. And I'd be really interested to know as well, are you someone who learns by going to classes or have one-on-ones, group classes, or do you do it all yourself?
I need to have interaction and I need to have input. So I do like classes if the classes are interactive, like they break us into groups and we have to talk to each other, that type of thing. That's nice. I like those type of things. But if it's like being lectured for 4 hours, then no.
That's less fun. So would you say what are your resources that you would always go back to? Or if someone says, I want to learn German, what would be your things that really kind of fired you up?
Whenever someone's like, "Hey, I'm learning German," the first thing I'm like, "Okay, where are you? Let's start there. Where are you? Are you like absolute beginner, or you know some things, or
So let's say I'm
there's
going to give you an example. You're
okay,
like kind of mid A2 level.
okay. So if you're mid A2 level, that means you have a good enough vocabulary to at least start to have some basic conversation. So I encourage people to start with conversation because that's what helped me advance so quickly. And what I would do is every day I would make it a point to talk to someone and say something. And I'd go as far as I could, and then I'd be like, okay, that's the limitations of my German. And then they'd teach like, oh, okay, well, next time you can say this. And so every day I could take it a little further. And so if you're already A2, I just start with the basic, hi, how are you? How you doing? Oh, I'm okay. And then just every day try to take it a little bit further, whether it's written. If you live in the country, it's even better because you can go outside and do that. But that's what I would encourage. That's the first thing I would say. I read something that said 1 hour of speaking practice is equivalent to 10 study hours in that language.
I've never heard that before, and I love that. That's so logical and easy to remember as well, right? Wow, that's great. And I also want to know what it was like integrating into Germany as well. I mean, I know that there's a thing that people always say in terms of, or maybe Anglophones sometimes talk about, oh, but people always switch back to English with me. And I don't know whether that's actually specific to Anglophones or in general, because it's the lingua franca. But did you find it difficult to integrate or to get that practice in, or did you feel like you were kind of welcomed into the German community around you?
I think it all depends. I think people will switch back into English with you because they want to practice their
Right.
English, not necessarily because your German's not good enough or something like that. And I don't think people realize that. And that's something I had to realize because I would get agitated sometimes when people would like switch back to English and I'm like trying to speak German with them. And I would be like, I know my German's not bad. And then people would tell you like, oh, well, you're American and I want to practice my English. And so, yeah, it happens. But I mean, there's nothing you really can do. It's like if they insist on speaking English, then you just have to, find somebody else to practice with. But usually you have one of two people, either the people they don't like their English or are embarrassed of it and they will speak to you in German, or the people that are like, oh, I got a native speaker. I want to practice. That's what you get. France, on the other hand, is a completely different story.
Mhm.
They're not, here in Germany, you could be like, sprechen Sie English? And they would be like, oh, yeah. And then, or they'll, oh, no, but they work with you, right? You kind of like talk slowly and stuff. In France, you're like, parlez-vous anglais? And they're just like, no, and just waiting for you to like, and then when they talk back, they don't even slow down. They're like talking their regular speed, and you're like trying to like hurry up and pick everything up what they're saying and stuff. And it's just so crazy how you go to different countries and have different experiences.
It's the ultimate lesson, isn't it? Also, something I really like is seeing the kind of like native level tolerance. So I speak Brazilian Portuguese, and I absolutely love how many compliments you get from Brazilians. Even if, even when the bar was really low and I had quite a low level, they still tell you that you were amazing at speaking Portuguese.
Yeah.
Keep coming, keep them coming, keep them coming. It keeps my confidence up. Did you ever
I
find
think
that with any of the languages, or I suppose perhaps with encouragement from, did you say your stepfather, who's Puerto Rican, that you had a lot of encouragement
um I he didn't really help me learn Spanish like that. But I mean, he was just open to telling me, like, if I would say, oh, like, I noticed they keep saying the same word over and over, or like I would see certain words, or like, what does noticias mean? Like, what is that word? I keep seeing it. He's like, oh, it means news.
from?
I'm like, oh, okay. So I wouldn't say he encouraged me to learn, but he was definitely there. He helped me.
Yep, great.
Other than that, I don't know. I don't think I got encouragement to learn any of the languages, to be honest. I think I encouraged myself. I just was like, I learned French, I learned German. I didn't really have anybody saying, you can do this. I don't think I needed anybody to because I was so passionate about it.
Hmm. And I guess that's passion has kind of led to the amazing community that you created, the Black Girls Learn Languages. So can you talk me through that, what the community is, what its objectives are, what positives have come out of it, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so basically, I started it because I remember when I was in high school, I actually genuinely loved French class in junior high school and high school. I genuinely loved the language class. And even before I started like really getting into languages, when I was staying with my grandmother was a nurse and she had a lot of medical books, encyclopedias. So I would spend my time like looking at the medical books, looking at the encyclopedias, looking at like root words and understanding prefixes and like medical terms and like the Latin and stuff like that. So I just always had this kind of fixation with words, no matter if it was English, German, whatever. And I just thought to myself when I was in high school, like junior high school, it was just like, why is there's no one like me in the French club, right? Like, why? I know there has to be another person that looks like me. And the reason why it was so important is because I had a moment in class where, I don't know if you're aware that, Black people, we have like a vernacular in the US and it's regional. So like I'm from New York, but because, my grandmother's originally from down south, I also know some of the things, the vernacular they use there. So basically, with that said, I had a incident, well, not really incident, but I think I was in French, one of my French classes, and I asked how to say something, and it was like vernacular, but it was something that I didn't think that it would be the, and so then I think like the teacher was like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, you don't know what that means? Like, I don't remember what it was, but let's say it was something like if I was to say something like, oh, you got me twisted, right? You got me twisted. And she was just like, well, what exactly does that mean? I'm like, you don't know what that means? And like, everybody's in. And so I'm like, I now have to explain this to you. And I don't like that. It puts me in an awkward situation to have to explain my language to you. And then, you know what I mean? There's this certain thing where people kind of back then would like kind of look at you as uneducated because you speak whatever vernacular slang or whatever. And so I just was always thinking like it would be so cool if it was someone like me that spoke, vernacular, our culture, understands certain things without me having to explain it and saying, hey, I wonder if they say this, they have a way of saying this in French or whatever. And so I just was like, I know it's out there. Like from a statistical, from a probability standpoint, I know there are other Black girls like me that love languages. They're not just taking it because it's a graduation requirement. Like they really love it. And so I just was like always kept that with me. And I remember when I moved back to New York and I was just like, oh, I'm sure somebody has started because it was like a lot of Black girl communities, like Black Girls Code or Black Girls Travel, or it was a lot of those communities. So I just knew someone had created it already. And I was like, oh, I'm going to join it. I think that would be cool. And I was looking for it, looking on Instagram, looking on Twitter, looking on the web, Googling, couldn't find it. And then I was like, it doesn't exist. And then I just heard this voice in my head say, do it and do it now. And so I started getting the handles and doing the stuff. And now I think in the Facebook community, there's like, I think it's like 2.5 thousand in there. And across all the social media platforms, I think it's like 10,000. So it's really a big community. And I've made friends with people, from the community. In fact, one of my friends, we're going to the Polyglot conference in Budapest next month. Yeah, so
that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's really cool. She lives in Switzerland, and I just was visiting her and my niece. We were hopping, skipping, jumping around. We went to go visit her in Switzerland. So it's really cool. And there's a lot of people who have connected from the platform. Like I know one of the girls that I'm friends with, she connected with someone and they was actually traveling together to Korea because they both learning Korean, speaking East Asian languages. So I think it's really cool that a lot of women have made connections in the group.
Mm. And what specifically made you decide it should be a space for women only?
The first thing was, I can't relate to men. Sorry, I can't relate to them. I'm a woman, so I can only relate to women. The second thing is I started noticing, and I don't know if women, like all women spaces that are very, inclusive of even women of color, I don't know if they noticed it, but I noticed it in spaces that are supposed to be either only for women of color or only Black women or only women. I notice sometimes the men get into spaces and they start being problematic, and I'm just like, no, no, let's not even do that. And I'm very glad because, especially right now, I don't know if you've been noticing the trends the past couple of years with this MGTOW, red pill stuff. There's a lot of men that are very angry.
Will you explain to me what you mean by that?
So MGTOW is called men going their own way. So it's like men divesting from women.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really weird. And then there's this pickup artist thing where like guys pay money to learn how to sleep with women for free or just for the price of coffee or whatever.
What, like that film that Will Smith was in years ago, like Hitch. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I think Hitch was different because he was actually trying to get people like in love,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And these are guys that are just trying to sleep with women for the price of a cup of coffee. And I've seen some crazy stuff. So I just think in an era where we're living in where men are seeking out and getting this messaging that, women are this, women are that, women are to blame, all women this. I think it's very important that women have their own safe spaces because, I mean, there's nothing worse than coming to a safe space and then seeing somebody post something derogatory, misogynistic, and you're like, I thought this was a safe space.
And so obviously you've mentioned kind of the power of networking as a positive from the community and having met so many other people. What other positives have you had from it, from Black Girls Learn Languages?
I know I did an interview with someone, and the interview got picked up by a whole lot of different outlets. It got picked up by Travel Noir, which is a Black media outlet for travel, and they also book travel packages and stuff. They got picked up by Black Enterprise, which is another media outlet, and some other stuff. So that was something I was just like, oh, wow, that's so neat that happened because, I didn't think anybody read my stuff.
And who was that with, that interview? It would be great if I could put the link in the description below for people to be able to see that after they watch this.
Yes. Nathan from Smarter Korean.
Okay.
I can give you the info and then you can put it in there.
Amazing.
But yeah, so he got yeah, he started getting a lot of attention after I did my thing and I did the coverage on him.
You are connected to so many people with so much knowledge. If I could ask you for example, three people who either you've interacted with recently or who spoke about something really memorable, is there anyone that you can kind of push us towards in terms of their channels or something else that they're doing?
All right, this is a good one. Okay, number one, um, LaDonna of Discovering Language. I love her. I love her story because she also speaks German, even though she is primarily East Asian languages, so Korean, I believe, Japanese, and a little bit of Chinese, but mostly Korean. She also learned German when she was a teenager. She did some kind of exchange program, and she was here in Germany, and so her German's really good. I love her, and I think that she's also a certified neuro language coach. So if you're looking for any kind of coaching with the language, anything like that, and she also, I think her specific interest though is like really indigenous languages, languages that are dying out. She has
Well,
a
this is so
podcast
in
on that.
tune with the topic of the conference. That sounds great. We'll definitely put the link in.
Yes, so LaDonna's amazing. I love her. There's a girl, I forgot her name. I have to find it and give it to you. But she is does French. There's a lot of people I follow doing French. She
Mm-hmm.
does French and she makes really funny videos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have to find the I know it, like I know her when I see her. She's on my feed and she always has these funny little TikTok videos that she puts on her Instagram. I
Okay, great.
love
We'll
those
put the link
videos.
in. So that's
I
two.
will put
Third one?
so that's and then I guess I'll just have to plug the other two co-founders and just make it one. So the other two co-founders of Souls, because LaDonna is one of the co-founders.
Sure.
I have to, although Tamara Marie, she was doing Spanish con salsa,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, she's also has a vegan initiative she's doing. So I'm not sure if she's still doing that regularly. I haven't followed it, but the podcasts were really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then uh Desta does languages through music, which I think is really cool because I also that was one of the ways I learned German. I would listen to German songs, so German hip hop, German R&B, and I'd read along while they were singing and then like so I think languages with music through music is also a good way to learn. So I'll give you the links for those. So yeah, I'd have to say that those are my top four kind of.
Amazing recommendations. Yeah, the music one's a great one. An app I really like is called it's called Lingo Clippers, the app. I don't know if you know it. And the website version is called Lyrics Training. And it's basically what you describe, where you get to watch the music video on YouTube and then it's like a gap fill, but it's interactive. So you listen and you fill in and it can be multiple choice. It's really cool. That's so great.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'd really recommend it. It's if you use the app, I think it's free if you only do two songs a day. Whereas if you use it on a desktop, it's you don't have to sign in or anything, so you can do it as many times as you want. But to be honest, I feel like two songs a day is enough anyway. If you think of kind of breaking down language learning. So I think my last question for you is when I think about how much you've achieved and how many different projects you've got, what concrete advice would you give to someone who's perhaps thought about, or maybe has identified a gap in the market, kind of like you did, or has a particular project they're really passionate about, but they don't know where to start, whether it's a blog, it's a community, it's a network, it's a podcast, whatever. What advice would you give to someone to kind of get them to do it?
Just do it. Just there's too many resources out there, because my thing was I started to talk myself out of it when I heard that voice say do it and do it now. I'm like, oh, but graphic design and this and that. I said, just do it. Just do it. You'll figure it out. And then it was just easy. There's Canva, there's all kinds of stuff, and there's different content creators that sell packages like for Canva or to create content. They sell like basically templates. There's just so much out there. And then there's Fiverr. You can get a lot of stuff done on Fiverr. There's just so many things you can do. And I think it's important to just get it done. And it's not going to be perfect when you get it
Mm-hmm.
done. Like if you look at my first website compared to the website now, it's like kindergarten to graduating high school. And I'm sure the next iteration of the website is going to look even better. Like that's just evolution. So just get started now. Don't worry about having everything you need or it being perfect. It will come.
And how did you find managing your time? Obviously, having presumably a full-time job and creating the community. Did you find that there was a conflict at times?
Yes, because when I started, I was not working. I
Okay.
had like just quit my job and I was grieving, going through the process with my mom. So it was really good to do to kind of get my mind off of that. So I was able to pour in a whole lot of time into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working and I was working part-time and so it was actually manageable still. Then I started working full time. It was still manageable, but it was like eating up my weekends. And then also my niece was like, "Do you have to be on the computer?" And I'm just like, "Ah." So it started to eat into family time. So yeah, it does. And then when I started writing my master thesis, it was like, okay, I have to stop.
So my final question for you, and this is my final, is what does the future hold for you, whether foreseeable future, whether you've got kind of bigger plans for the community, in and for language learning in general? Are you thinking of learning another language? Anything about the future? I want to know.
Yes, so I am thinking about I want to see what it's like to actually go to a language school in the country. So I'm actually looking at going to a language school in Spain or France, and see how that works out for like a week or two and just to experience it. So that's one thing I'm thinking about trying to plan how to do that. Another thing is the North Star of everything. I eventually want to start offering fellowships. So like basically like it's almost like basically like a scholarship. It's fully paid. So to some women, some Black women abroad, and they have 12 months or 18 months to work with a company and basically kind of do a thesis on the company and then in the end solve a business problem for them and also get the language training, etc. Very similar to the Robert Bosch Stiftung, the Robert Bosch Fellowship. I wanted to do that. And the reason why I say that is because I remember before I even started this, I would apply for scholarships and fellowships and stuff like that and I wouldn't get them. I mean, I got some, but like the fellowships I never got.
Hmm.
And I would then look at the fellows, like past fellows or the people who did get it when I applied. And I'd realize like these were already highly connected, successful people. They didn't need the fellowship. Like they already were working at CNN before the fellowship. They already working at NBC before the fellowship. You know, they're already working for Atlanta Hawks before the fellowship. You know, um, so I was just wondering why did they get this fellowship? Because for me, I feel like that should be given to people who show the potential and they need to, change the trajectory of their career,
Mm-hmm.
not for people who are already highly connected. They have the money already. Like, so I was just like, if I ever get in a position to start a scholarship, start a fellowship, I'm going to make sure that it goes to the people who actually need it and who have demonstrated resilience, even though maybe they may not have gotten maybe they didn't make the dean's list every single semester, but maybe they faced some hardship and their last 2 semesters or 3 semesters they were able to make the dean's list, something like that where it's like they're getting a second chance because they're showing that, hey, I wasn't able to overcome at this point in my life, but I'm trying and I'm kicking and I'm screaming to make it now. So
I
that's
think
the
that
next
sounds like a
step.
great
And
idea.
I need to get the funding. I need to get the support. I need to get the sponsorship. So if anybody's interested, please let me know.
That's such a great thing to hear because you're so clearly someone who envisions something and you just go after it. And I think, what you talked about earlier about, we can sometimes talk ourselves out of things. And you've clearly just got a method for saying, go away. I don't need to hear that, stuff that's going to discourage you. So it's so positive. I mean, I do remember that when I was when I was first trying to break into the working world, you've got that permanent loop, haven't you, of that kind of, I can't get a
Mm-hmm.
job because I don't have experience, because I can't get a job because and you think,
Yes.
where, how do you get in if that's true? So it's such a brilliant idea. I love it. Thank you so much, Shahidah. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
The only other thing I want to say is the only one expecting language perfection out of you is you. Nobody else is expecting that.
I like that a lot. And why do you say that?
Because everybody is always like, oh my, I even go through that sometimes where I'm like, I kind of stutter a little bit because I'm like, is it der, die, das? You know, nobody cares. So,
Absolutely. Listen, thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking to you today.
no, thank you for having me.
And I'm so looking forward to meeting you in person in Budapest.
Yay, I'm excited.
Thank you.